On the morning my husband was laid to rest, something inside me quietly broke and something far more dangerous took its place. If you'd seen me that day, you would have thought I was just another grieving old woman, 75 years old, hands shaking, dressed in black, saying thank you to neighbors who brought casseroles and pity in equal measure. No one could see the storm gathering behind my eyes. No one could imagine what I would witness before nightfall. My name is Margaret Sullivan, and Sweetwater, Tennessee, has been my home for most of my life. It's the kind of town where everyone knows your name, where gossip travels faster than the river after a storm, and where people believe they know your family's story even when they don't. I made my living with flour-dusted hands and patience. Every Saturday morning, I set up my table at the farmer's market under the old oak tree, selling cheese biscuits, cornbread, and butter cookies that cracked just right when you bit into them. Bacon kept my grief busy after my husband William passed. When my hands worked, my heart hurt a little less. Both William and I were married for 36 years. We built a farm together, raised children together, survived droughts, debts, and disappointments. Together, I thought that counted for something. I thought love planted carefully would grow straight and true. We had 4 strong, loud, ambitious boys who learned early how to take up space in the world. And then, years later, when I thought motherhood was behind me, God gave me Lily, my last child, my only daughter, soft-spoken, kind-hearted, and gentle in ways this world often punishes. William adored her, maybe too openly, maybe too much. Jealousy is a quiet thing at first. It doesn't scream. It whispers. It smiles across the dinner table and waits. When William died, suddenly his heart giving out in the very fields he worked for decades, our family gathered under one roof again. 4 grown men, 1 young woman, and me, medicated, exhausted, and drowning in loss. I should have noticed the looks they gave Lily. I should have trusted the tightness in my chest. I should have stayed awake, because while I slept upstairs, clinging to memories of the man I loved, something unforgivable was happening just down the hall. And when I opened my eyes that night, I was still a widow. But by the time I saw what my sons had done to their sister, the mother I used to be was already gone. I thought burying my husband was the worst pain a woman could endure. Until I followed a sound down the hallway and looked through a half-open bathroom door. I don't know how long I'd been asleep. Grief and medication blur time into something shapeless. But what woke me wasn't a dream, it was a sound. A dull noise, heavy, wrong, like something being dropped where it shouldn't be. At first I told myself it was nothing. Old houses make noises, floors creak, pipes complain. But then I heard voices, male voices, low, angry, familiar in a way that made my stomach twist. My heart started pounding before my feet even touched the floor. I pulled myself out of bed, my legs weak, my head spinning. The hallway was dark, except for one strip of yellow light spilling from the bathroom at the far end. Lily's bathroom. The door wasn't fully closed. That light felt like a warning. Each step toward it felt heavier than the last. My nightgown clung to my skin, damp with sweat. I could hear my sons more clearly now, voices sharpened by rage, stripped of any warmth I once recognized. "Did you think you were special?" one of them hissed. I stopped just short of the door, my breath caught in my throat through the narrow opening. I saw steam hanging thick in the air. The shower had been running recently. The mirror was fogged. The room smelled of soap and something metallic I didn't yet understand. Then I saw Lily. She was pressed back against the sink, wrapped in a bathrobe that was no longer neat or secure. Her arms were raised, trying to protect her face, her body, trembling so hard I could see it even from where I stood. Her hair was wet, clinging to her cheeks. Her eyes were wide not with anger, not with defiance, but with terror. My sons surrounded her. 4 grown men. The boys I carried, the boys I fed, clothed, defended my entire life. One of them had his hand gripping her jaw, forcing her to look up. Another was tearing through drawers, slamming them shut, throwing things onto the tile. Bottles shattered, towels fell. No one cared. "You're going to give up your claim," one of them said coldly. "You don't belong here." Lily tried to speak. Her lips moved, her voice barely came out. Whatever she said didn't matter. They weren't listening. I wanted to scream. I wanted to rush in. I wanted to tear them away from her with my bare hands. but my body wouldn't move. Shock wrapped around me like chains. My voice disappeared. I stood there silent, shaking, watching the unthinkable unfold inside my own home. And then, in one sudden, brutal moment, everything went wrong. I watched my daughter stumble backward and heard the sound of her head striking stone before I could even breathe. The sound was short, sharp, final. Lily's body hit the sink edge before she hit the floor. I heard the dull crack of bone against stone, a noise so unnatural it stole the air from my lungs. Her knees gave out immediately, and she collapsed onto the cold tile like something lifeless, her limbs folding beneath her. For a split second, everything froze. Steam still drifted from the shower, the light buzzed overhead, and then I saw the blood dot. It spread quickly, bright against the white floor, soaking into the bathrobe she'd wrapped herself in only minutes earlier. Blood where laughter should have been, blood where safety should have lived. My sons didn't rush to help her. They didn't kneel. They didn't panic. They didn't even look afraid. They just stood there. One of them scoffed. Another muttered something about her being dramatic. Someone laughed, a short, empty sound that echoed off the bathroom walls and carved itself into my memory forever. I wanted to believe I was hallucinating, that grief and pills had twisted my mind, but no nightmare could invent the stillness in Lily's body or the way her fingers twitched weakly against the tile. One of my sons leaned down, grabbed her chin, and forced her face upward. I couldn't hear every word, but I didn't need to. His tone said enough. It was a warning, a threat. If she spoke, if she told, if she dared to exist in their way, then they stepped over her, over their sister, like she was nothing more than an inconvenience on the floor. I heard their footsteps retreat down the hall. I heard their voices fade into the living room. Glasses clinked. Someone poured a drink. Laughter followed, low, satisfied, careless. They were celebrating. I don't remember how long I stood there afterward. Seconds, minutes, a lifetime. My hands were shaking so badly I had to press them against the wall to keep from collapsing. Then something inside me shifted, not loudly, not dramatically. It was quiet, solid, cold. I locked the bathroom door behind me and fell to my knees beside Lily. Up close, she looked so small, so broken. Blood streaked her forehead, matting her hair. Her eyes were open, but empty, like she'd gone somewhere I couldn't reach. I tore a towel from the rack and pressed it gently against her wound, whispering her name over and over, begging her to look at me. When she finally did, what I saw in her eyes hurt more than the blood, that fear, shame. On one question she didn't have the strength to ask yet. I knew then that nothing would ever be the same, 'cause in that bathroom, I didn't just lose my husband, I lost my sons. As I held my bleeding daughter on the floor, I made a silent decision, one that would change every single life in that family forever. I held Lily on that bathroom floor until my knees went numb and my arms ached. Time stopped meaning anything. All that mattered was the slow rise and fall of her chest and the warmth of her body reminding me she was still alive. When she finally whispered, "Mama," my heart cracked all over again. She asked me why they hated her, what she had done wrong. There is no answer to a question like that. No truth gentle enough to soften it. I told her what I knew was right, that she had done nothing, that the cruelty lived in them, not her. But even as I spoke, I knew words couldn't undo what had been taken from her. I cleaned her wound as best I could, wrapped her head carefully, helped her sit up. She obeyed quietly, like a child much younger than her years. The spark she once carried was gone, replaced by something fragile and dim from downstairs. I could still hear my sons laughing, but sound hardened something inside me. I helped Lily into my bedroom and laid her down. Then I sat beside her and spoke in a voice steadier than I felt. I told her she would say she slipped, that she fell, that nothing more had happened. Not yet. She looked confused, scared, but she nodded. That night, after the house finally fell, silent, I lay awake staring at the ceiling. The bed felt too large without William. The air felt thick, dangerous. My mind ran in circles, calling the police, telling family, screaming the truth into the world, and every path ended the same way, for men against a grieving widow and a shaken girl. Excuses, denials, accidents, nothing would happen. That's when I remembered the mountain house, William's retreat in the Smokies, the one he built with his own hands. Beneath it sat a reinforced cellar he used for aging cheese-stick concrete walls, a heavy steel door. No way to open it from the inside once closed. The thought didn't arrive fully formed. It grew quietly, like a seed finding soil. By morning, my face was calm. I made breakfast, poured coffee, listened as my sons spoke to me as if nothing had happened, as if they hadn't destroyed something sacred the night before. I told them I'd thought things through, that the inheritance should be theirs, that Lily would step aside, and that William had left cash hidden at the Mountain House, money only I could access. Greed works faster than grief. They didn't question me. They didn't notice the change in my voice. They saw only victory. 2 days later, we packed the truck before dawn. Lily stayed behind. I kissed her forehead and told her to trust me. She didn't know what I planned, but I did. As the truck climbed into the mountains, my sons talked about their future, never realizing they were driving straight toward the end of theirs. The road into the Smoky Mountains twisted like a slow-moving snake, climbing higher with every mile. Civilization thinned out quickly. Fewer houses, fewer cars, fewer people who might hear or see anything. My sons didn't notice. They were too busy arguing over numbers that didn't exist yet. One wanted new land. Another dreamed of a bigger truck. Another talked about investments and travel. They spoke over one another, loud and excited, already dividing the future like butchers carving meat. I sat in the front seat, hands folded in my lap, watching the trees thicken and the air turn cooler. The mountains rose around us, silent and unmoved by human greed. I felt no fear, only a strange, steady calm. If every step since that bathroom night had been guiding me here. The house appeared just after noon. Stone walls, weathered roof, no neighbors for miles. Willem built it to last, and it stood there exactly as he left it, solid, quiet, patient. The cellar entrance sat along the slope behind the house, half hidden by brush, a thick steel door, heavy, unforgiving. I pointed it out, told them the safe was inside. That was all it took. They rushed down the stone steps, flashlights already out, voices sharp with impatience. They didn't admire the craftsmanship, didn't notice the silence, didn't question why their father would hide money here instead of a bank. Greed doesn't ask questions. Inside, the cellar smelled of earth and old stone. Cool air pressed against our skin. The concrete walls swallowed sound, making their voices echo strangely. "Where is it?" one demanded. "There's no safe," I said calmly. They turned toward me, confused at first, then angry, then afraid. I stood in the doorway, sunlight behind me, my hand wrapped firmly around the steel handle. For the first time, they truly looked at Manath as their weak mother, not as a grieving widow, but as something unfamiliar. "You hurt your sister," I said, "on the day your father was buried." They shouted, denied it, threatened me, tried to scare me back into obedience. I stepped out and pulled the door. The weight of it did the work for me. It slammed shut with a sound so final it echoed through the mountain. I locked it once, then twice, then a third time. The screaming came fast after that, fists pounding metal, voices cracking, promises, insults, all blending into one desperate noise. I leaned close to the small vent and spoke clearly. "You'll have food and water, a week's worth, time to think." They called my name until their voices broke. I walked away, at the creek nearby. I stopped and looked at the heavy key in my hand. Then I threw it into the rushing water and watched it disappear forever as I drove back down the mountain alone. I realized something chilling. I felt no guilt, only relief. I never went back to the mountain house. I didn't check the news, didn't ask questions. Some doors, once closed, are not meant to be opened again, not even in the mind. I returned to Lily and packed what little we needed. Within weeks, the farm was sold, lawyers handled what had to be handled, and we disappeared from a place that no longer felt like home. People in Sweetwater talked, of course, they always do. Some stories were close to the truth, others were wild guesses. I let them talk. Silence became my shield. Lily healed slowly. The wound on her forehead closed, but the deeper scars took longer. Nightmares, sudden fear, a long road back to trust. She moved to Nashville, went to therapy, studied, rebuilt herself piece by piece. I watched from a careful distance, proud of her strength, humbled by it. Today, she has a family of her own, a husband who treats her with kindness, 2 children who laugh easily and run barefoot through my yard when they visit. When I see her smile now, Riel, unguarded eye, know she survived, not because of what I did, but because she chose not to let cruelty define her. As for me, I came back to Sweetwater, years later, quietly. I bought a small house near the market and returned to baking. People know me now as the old woman with the biscuits, the one who listens more than she speaks. They don't know my story, and I prefer it that way. Do I regret what I did? No. I don't feel pride. I don't feel triumph. I feel peace, the kind that comes when, you stood between harm and the one you love and didn't step aside. I learned something that day. Something the world doesn't like to say out loud. Some lines, once crossed, cannot be forgiven. Some evils don't deserve second chances. And sometimes protection looks nothing like mercy. I don't ask God to judge me gently. I ask Him to understand why I did what I did. And in my quiet moments, when the house is still and the biscuits are cooling on the counter, I believe He does. If you're listening to this and you're suffering in silence, if someone you love is being hurt by the very people meant to protect them, know this: you are not weak for feeling afraid, but silence only feeds cruelty. Seek help, seek safety, choose action over fear, because love is not passive. Love defends, and a mother becomes something unstoppable when her child is threatened. If this story stayed with you, write strength in the comments so others know they're not alone either.